What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome back to another Battlefield 6 gun guide. In today's episode, by popular request, we're going to be moving on to the M277 in the carbine category. And starting it off as always, let's have a look at the raw power of this gun. And when it comes to our rate of fire, this is moderate for a carbine at 719 rounds per minute. And we have a very interesting damage profile with this. Unlike with all of the other carbines that have 4 separate damage ranges, we only have 2 with this gun. So from 0 to 75 meters, this gun will be a 4-shot kill to the body for a 250 millisecond time to kill, which right up close and personal isn't great for the carbine category. However, this extends far beyond the maximum damage range of all of the others, and we'll look at our range comparison in just a little bit. So don't write that time to kill off entirely. It's actually pretty incredible at mid ranges. But then finally for this, when it comes to headshots, without the hollow point ammo, it does take 3 headshots mixed in with body shots to reduce the number of shots to kill, which isn't great. However, we could use the hollow point ammo to cut that down to just 2 headshots mixed in order to reduce the number of shots to kill, which isn't a terrible choice on this gun. Now, as promised, let's get into the range comparison here. And like I said, this gun is an anomaly in the carbine category. That 4-shot kill extends out to 75 meters. And at this point, most of the other carbines have dropped off to like a 6 to 8 shot kill. We're still maintaining a 4-shot kill and that incredible time to kill potential now for mid-range at 250 milliseconds. Essentially anything after 9.5 meters, this gun excels in the carbine category when it comes to time to kill. And then even at the longest ranges, even beyond 75 meters, where it's now going to take us 5 shots to kill, we have the best time to kill potential in the carbine category. So it may not be the best right up close and personal, but at least time to kill wise, it's absolutely the best at mid to long ranges. Now after that, let's have a look at our bullet velocity, which unfortunately I made a mistake in my M4 gun guide. I've been very busy lately, and when creating that graphic, I ended up updating the names of the guns, but not the velocity values when creating that graphic based on the assault rifles. I'm trying my best to limit the number of errors that I'm making here. I am spread pretty thin here, but that's on me. I just got to focus up on things a little bit. So I do apologize for any little mistakes here, but I always try to at least remedy them as we go through the series. These are the correct values. And the M277 is right around average for the carbine category at 624 meters per second. So not terrible in this area, but also not great. Next, let's have a look at hipfire, which is just standard for the carbine category, and it's not a bad hipfire spread, and sure, right up close and personal, hipfiring's great, just like with any carbine. However, as we'll see in a bit, we have a fairly small magazine capacity with this, and as a result, I just find that you often can't afford to be spraying and praying with hipfire, so I typically try to avoid it with this gun unless I'm like practically touching the enemy player. Then after that, let's have a look at recoil. And this is an area where this gun definitely struggles relative to the others. A big thing to keep in mind here is this recoil plot is with the smaller 20-round magazine compared to the 30-round magazines that we're seeing with almost all of the other carbines here. And even with that in mind, we're seeing a higher overall magnitude. There tend to be bigger gaps between those shots as well. And it's got a lot of horizontal recoil, which is typically harder to control than vertical recoil. However, I will say one saving grace with this is it does appear that the spread is very minimal on this gun, and it's primarily just recoil. So the bullets are generally going quite close to your point of aim, even when holding down the trigger for the full magazine. It's just that your reticle is going to be bouncing around quite a bit, so it can be kind of difficult to handle, but at least more often than not, you can see where you're missing and why you're missing. Now after that, let's have a look at our handling stats, which are generally standard for the carbine category, although we're also looking at magazine capacities here, and this is one downside. The default magazine capacity is just 20 rounds, and this is something that really actively holds this gun back relative to the others. I find myself often just reloading after every kill, or sometimes I'll go for 2 kills if I have 2 guys that are currently visible. I'll get my 2 kills and then I'll reload, but I rarely stretch it beyond that. And unfortunately, our reload time isn't amazing with this either. I mean, it's right around average for the carbines. It's not terrible. It's just for how often you have to reload, it can often feel pretty terrible. So that's why I really like leaning in the direction of the fast mags, which will improve that reload time. And then finally, for our base multiplayer stats, let's have a look at our movement speeds, which are all just standard for the carbine category. There's really nothing out of the ordinary here. And this just leaves us with our basic REDSEC stats. Against 2 armor plates, this gun is actually quite consistent. It's going to be an 8 to 9 shot kill. And once again, we have that really nice maximum damage range, which is excellent, especially in REDSEC, because you're often going to find yourself in those mid to longer range fights. The only downside, once again, is our magazine capacity, especially when you start mixing armor into the equation. When you need almost half of your magazine just to down a single player, that can take away from its versatility, especially in squad-based modes. But that time to kill potential at mid to long range is really hard to ignore. It absolutely excels in that area. Even though you might not be seeing it here, just remember that range is going to be outclassing almost every gun in the game. And there we have it. That's going to wrap it up for all of the important stats of the M277. Now let's get into a couple excellent attachment combinations. And the first one I've got for you guys is the one that I'm using 99% of the time with this gun. I really like this setup. With this, we're using the OSA 7 optic, my personal favorite. We've got the light and suppressor, which thankfully is unlocked, I believe, immediately with this gun. And that's really refreshing because many of the guns you have to grind for a while just to get your first suppressor, and it's usually just the standard one. We're also using the heavy extended barrel on this. This one is an absolute no-brainer. As long as you've got it unlocked, you should 100% be using it. That will boost our muzzle velocity up to 780 meters per second, and it helps improve our aim down sight spread a little bit. For our underbarrel, we have the 6H64 vertical, simply because that's the best one that we could afford with these other attachments on there to help with recoil. We have the 20 round fast mag on this combined with the mag catch, and both of these will improve our reload time and cut it down to just below 2 seconds. So that's nice, especially with how often you have to reload on this. And then we're just topping it off with the standard ammo. And with this particular setup, you can see it helps with the recoil. I mean, there's still a fair amount of recoil, all things considered, but it makes it that much easier to control at least. And it helps get that spread under control as well toward the top end. Even though there's not a lot of spread, now there's even less while using that heavy extended barrel. And with this, I would say that I feel confident full autoing at like close to mid-range, but I will be tap firing if I start stretching that out at all. And I just feel very comfortable and confident with this particular setup. And that's why I don't even like branching away from it at all. This is the one, like I said, I'm going to be using this 99% of the time if I'm using this gun. However, in saying that, I want to show at least a little bit of variety here. So the next one I wanted to share is my headshot build that's designed a bit more for long ranges as well and more precise shots. Because this gun does very well at that, since it's only ever going to take you at most 5 shots to kill to the body. So with this one, we're once again using the light and suppressor. It just works really well on this gun, and it's an early unlock, so that makes it so you can use this build fairly early on as well as you're leveling up. We once again have that heavy extended barrel on there. It's an absolute must-have, and we're once again using the 20 round fast mag. Now, outside of that, for our optic, we're using the PVQ-31 4x optic, so we've got a lot more zoom here, so we can sit back and get a little bit of that extra precision with that. For our underbarrel, we're using the alloy vertical, and we're finishing this off with hollow point. And with this build, I will often tap fire this and almost treat it like it's a semi-auto, even though I'm not going to put it in semi-auto mode. I'm going to fire it almost like it is a semi-auto at any sort of range. And with that, you can actually pick off headshots quite effectively, or just pick people off with body shots just fine as well. Again, not my preferred build by any means, but just an alternative that you may want to give a shot. And there we have it. That's going to wrap it up for today's gun guide on the M277. And when it comes to my thoughts on this gun, I was honestly very pleasantly surprised once I took the time to get into it and unlock some attachments and get used to it. Initially, I hated this gun. The first time I used it, I thought this was awful. And that was primarily due to the amount of recoil as well as the default optic. I just really didn't like that. It just felt like it was bouncing all over the place. But I stuck with it, I customized some of the attachments, I learned to tap fire a bit more often than I would with some of the other guns out there. And once I did that, I really started enjoying this gun a whole lot more. And I've got a lot more respect for it, especially at those mid to longer ranges. Now, of course, those are just my thoughts on the M277, and I'd love to hear from you guys in those comments down below. How do you feel about this gun in its current state in Battlefield 6? Now, on top of that, as I said in the previous episode, from here on out, I'm open to requests, even if it's outside of the current category of weapons that I'm covering. You don't have to recommend a carbine. It could be something else. And that's what I said last episode, but so many people were saying they wanted to see the M277, so that's why we covered it today. So let me know which gun you'd like me to cover next. And if you guys have missed any of the previous gun guides, I will leave a link to the playlist in the description. If you enjoyed this one, a like rating is always appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.